So you want to ride the USA. This little video is going to help, hopefully, you decide what you do, where you go, and by what method. So I've done a lot of travelling in the USA, and actually I worked there for a year and a half as well. But from a motorcycling point of view, I've done 5 trips. Two of those trips, first one in 2011 and the second one in 2013, were on hire bikes. The first one was coming out of Phoenix, Arizona, and that was on R1200 RTs. And the second one was out of San Francisco on K1600 6-cylinder BMWs. The other trips, the other 3 trips, were all on Boris, my bike, my current bike, BMW R1200 GS. First of those was in 2015, where I shipped them down to Argentina and rode up all the way through America into Alaska. And then the second one was riding from San Francisco to Boston. And the third one was Boston back via Route 66 to LA and then up to Vancouver. I'll go over a little bit more detail of all of those trips using the map. So let me give you a visual overview of what I've done. So 2011 was this trip here, starting in Phoenix and then heading up through Sedona, which is beautiful red rock canyons and twisty roads from Sedona up the way, through the Grand Canyon, which is obviously a brilliant sight, and then through Monument Valley, which was fantastic, up to northern New Mexico, down through Santa Fe, another cracking place, down through Albuquerque and right down to Truth and Consequences, and then back across the desert through Silver City, Tucson, and then into Phoenix again. Great riding because you can do it at the latter part of the year, you know, the Octobers, the probably April, and you're probably going to get some good sunshine. You might get some spectacular rainfall as well, rain showers. That's the thing with the US. If it rains, it can be cataclysmic. Is that a word? It's really, it rains hard at times. It's like pull over and wait it out, get yourself soaked. 2013 we went to the California, to San Francisco, and we rode down Pacific Coast Highway 1, which is one of those rides a lot of people want to do, not all the way down in that case, but we turned over and went to Yosemite National Park. Again, just great riding in the US, fantastic riding. And then to Lake Tahoe, back across the Donner Pass and back into San Francisco. Then in 2015 was the big one, approaching from South America through Mexico. I entered the US in the southwest corner, up through LA, and ended up with a week in LA with my wife, and then ended up riding up all the way up Pacific Coast Highway 1 through California, across the Golden Gate Bridge and through Oregon, and then ended up in Seattle and crossed into Canada, rode through Canada, British Columbia and the Yukon, which were spectacular, and into Alaska, which I absolutely loved, the wilderness, the crazy people, etc. So all of that area is fantastic to ride. It's maybe not one trip for a lot of people. You could go and ride Alaska. You could split it up whatever way you wanted. But that was on my own bike. That just was a great experience. In 2018, I come back to San Francisco and headed across Route 50, which was, I keep saying phenomenal, wonderful, brilliant, but it really is. It's great riding in the US. Route 50 was just great. You'd see the old Pony Express tracks off to your left and right, and stagecoach stops, and it was just that typical America, big straight roads and, you know, mountains. It was fantastic. Felt they call it the loneliest road in America, and it is one of them. The Dalton Highway felt lonelier for me when I was on my own. But yeah, made my way into Utah, brushed a wee bit of Colorado, into Wyoming, South Dakota, visited the town of Sturgis where they have the famous rally. It wasn't on, but it's a great motorcycle town. Rode round the Black Hills, which fantastic riding. That whole area is fantastic riding. And then went to Badlands National Park, which was one of my favourite stops. After Badlands, it was the boring plains bit, which is just get your head down and ride, and all of the way back through to Boston and the East Coast, where I met my wife for a week's holiday. Post-COVID, I come back to Boston, so that was 2.5 years Boris sat in a garage in Massachusetts. Took a little southern route towards Chicago, met up with two of my friends, and we did Route 66. First part of Route 66, a lot of straight and, kind of boring roads, but just full of great Route 66 stuff to see. And it just got more and more interesting as you headed down into Oklahoma and through Texas, through New Mexico, into California. Just phenomenal, great roads, great weather, brilliant experience all round. And then once I got to LA, I split up with my friends and headed up again, taking a more direct route this time, up to Seattle and into Vancouver to ship my bike home. What can I say about American campsites? Are phenomenally good, expensive, but brilliant. So I'd say at the time probably £25–30 a night, but you get a beer box to lock away your food, you get a picnic table, you get a fire pit, and you get a really nice flat pitch. So really a great experience, American camping. American hotels. If the cities can be an absolute nightmare in terms of price, but out in the boonies, the prices have been pretty good. We'd normally pay $70–80, £60–70 a night for a decent motel, maybe even cheaper. And definitely good enough standard for me. I mean, not maybe good enough standard for other people, but for me they're clean and they're quiet. Then it's good. It works out fine. So, bike hire or renting a bike or shipping your bike, it's kind of a no-brainer based on the amount of time you've got. So when I was renting bikes in 2011 and 2013, I don't remember the exact price, but they were double the price, 3 times the price of a hire car. So I'm guessing round about, for a week, round about £700–800, which is expensive, but it's a bike, and I guess there's more risk involved, more insurance involved. And at the time, as I said, we were using like separate companies that were Californian Bike Hire, I think they were called, and one down in Arizona. The Arizona one was much better than the Californian one. You can get really relatively poorly maintained bikes. I mean, the 1600 BMWs, I think, were not properly looked after. We managed to get there. We had to blow up tyres and stuff like that. But yeah, it was. I've heard the other people. A friend and his brother did a trip, and again they had fairly poorly maintained bikes, which is disappointing for that kind of money. Now, in terms of rental now, after COVID, things went sky high through the roof. And now, I'm sure you've heard of them if you've been doing any research in American bike hire. Eagle Rider are the very dominant company. Now, Eagle Rider are really expensive. I was looking at it for a week's trip down in Phoenix, Arizona. It was going to be something like £1,500, including insurances and stuff. And it's just, it's shocking for that price. Like, for example, they don't, if you break down, they charge you to come out and get the bike. You've got to take an extra, quite a decent amount a day to get breakdown insurance. It just seems to me as though, and I might be wrong, but to me it seems Eagle Rider are dominating the market, providing not a brilliant service at a very high cost. Again, watching some of the videos, of Route 66 where people have hired Ego Rider bikes. It's not uncommon for them to break down, so that would really sicken me if I was paying that amount of money. Now I'll come back to what I think is a ray of sunshine, a ray of light in the rental market in the USA. I hope anyway, because I'm about to test it. After I talk to you about freight. Now again, freight was expensive. The first time I freighted my bike, when I got to the Americas, we actually freighted it down to Buenos Aires and then did the big Pan-American Highway trip up all the way through America, through the USA, through Canada, through Alaska, USA, to the Dalton Highway. Now, roughly speaking, to ship it to the US and back, at that time I think was £1,500 per trip, per section, so it's a £3,000. I mean, a serious amount of money. But that was a 4.5 month trip, so it was again a no-brainer. You couldn't rent a bike and take it through all of those countries. You maybe could have bought a bike, but you'd probably have to have sold it at the end, and maybe you couldn't sell it because you buy it in Argentina, you sell it in America. Could you? Don't know, probably, but it takes a bit of work. But for me, it was well worth it. It was part of the cost of that trip. And the second time that I flew the bike was probably roughly the same, £1,500, going out to San Francisco. And that's when the bike got stuck during COVID. So I rode across America, and I think it was a 3-week trip, which didn't justify £1,500, although it would have cost a hell of a lot more than that for Ego Rider. But my plan was leave it in Boston with a friend, or a friend's stepmom, and ride back to, fly back the next year and do another big trip, and then fly it home. COVID put the prices through the roof. It seemed impossible to pay for getting it home initially, but I kind of waited COVID out a wee bit and went back, and I was unable to ship it out of the US, although I think shipping it out of the US would have been more expensive, but they'd given me the wrong paperwork coming in, so they wouldn't let me ship out of the US. So I was in a situation where I had to ride to Vancouver in Canada, and I shipped it out of there, and I think the price eventually was about £1,600 or £1,700 to get it shipped from there to Stansted. So let me tell you a little bit more about the companies I used and the setup for freighting your bike, air freight. So for shipping out to Argentina and shipping back from Canada, I used Motor Freight, a UK-based company down south. They're really good, really professional. Now what Motor Freight do is they crate your bike up, fully enclose it in a pallet with fully enclose it in wood, and ship it that way. So it's extremely secure, but it's quite costly to get all of that done, and it can be a bit of hassle at the other end. Obviously your bike's protected, but the packing guys won't unpack it, or the shipping guys won't unpack it. You've got to unpack it yourself, so you're basically taking tools with you or foraging around for tools. So there was 3 of us in the Argentina trip, so that was fine. But when I come back, when I flew my bike into San Francisco with Motor Freight, I was on my own, and my hands were almost bleeding with turning so many screws manually. The guys that were there in the warehouse were saying they weren't insured to help me. So it was a great service, but that was the one downside. Now, when it came to shipping the bike back, I used a company called Motorcycle Express. They're an American company, but they do all of their shipping out of Canada. Now, they're different because they just put the bike on a pallet and basically put plastic over the bike. It's just strapped to the pallet. But I mean, for me, it was just as secure. It's an older bike. Maybe if you had a new 1300 GS, you might think different, but I wasn't bothered about having it enclosed in wood. And when I picked up the bike in Stansted, it was a much easier process. Although I must admit I had to use Motor Freight and they were very helpful. I had to pay them, of course, to clear the bike for me. So that's the combination of the two companies I've used. Why do I air freight and not sea freight? I think the costs don't end up too much different, but the risk is much higher. If the sea freight's much more prone to be delayed, so if I'm flying into Argentina and my bike's delayed for 3 weeks, one, it could ruin my trip, and two, it would add a lot of cost. So yeah, in that scenario, I would always air freight. Okay, so let me tell you about my recent discovery. You may be aware of it, but if you're not, you'll be as excited as me if you want to go and do the US. And that is a company called RiderShare. So RiderShare provide basically an Airbnb type service for motorbikes. In other words, they broker you renting a private individual's bike. They provide insurance for foreign drivers as well as locals. They provide breakdown cover, and you can then, depending on the guy that's renting it, he potentially can provide luggage or sat nav or gear or whatever. You just build it up as you see fit. Now, as an example, I talked about potentially like £1,500 to rent an Eagle Rider bike for a week. I'm renting a Triumph Speed Twin, and it's going to cost me about £600, including all the insurances, for a week, which, hey, it's a lot of money. A hire car would probably be £350 or something, or £300, but it's a motorcycle and it's going to be more expensive. You get reviews of the people that are renting them, obviously feedback and stuff like that. So I mean, it could be a complete disaster, but I've got a funny feeling it's not going to be. I've already had good communication with the owner of this particular bike. They rent them in all the major locations in the US. So for me, it gives you an opportunity to fly into a location and rent a bike and do a trip at a reasonable cost. It's no ideal for something like Route 66 because you need to return the bike to the owner, and they do restrict you. They restrict you to 150 miles a day included in the price, but you can pay 95 cents a mile or 75 cents a mile over and above that. But you wouldn't want to be doing huge mileages, and I guess private renters wouldn't want you to be doing huge mileages. So that's this year's trip. I'm meeting up Big Honda from Australia, Pup from down south in England, and Tree is coming with me here from Scotland. So there will be a report back on how RiderShare performs. Let me share with you some of the pictures of their website, and I'll obviously put links in this video. But that's my coverage of America. You can rent, you can take your own bike. I think it's all very much down to how long you're going to be there, but I would thoroughly recommend the Americas. I'd thoroughly recommend Canada, Western Canada. Yeah, if you can manage to afford it, you can do it, and if RiderShare potentially helps you get there, I'm not sponsored. I haven't tried them, maybe wait till I come back and post my video. Then go for it and enjoy. So finally, let's have a little look at the RiderShare website. As you can see, it is riders-share.com, and in it you have all sorts of options: popular locations, rent by brand, how it works, list your bike if you're actually doing it, renting out your bike yourselves. I'm logged in there, and as we scroll down, it's just showing you some of the popular locations. You click on them, it will take you in, choose your bike, book a trip, go for a ride. And as I said, they provide insurance, they provide breakdown cover, it's all up front, and some of the specific people that are renting their bike can provide some gear. I would say just take a look at it. I will report back to you shortly on my experience of rider share, but I must say I'm very excited about the prospect of having affordable motorcycle rental in the US.